welcome to Sunday Morning Cornerman. The Sunday Morning Cornerman is part of the Cageside Press Podcast Network. I'm John Franklin. On this episode of the SMC, we talk all the relevant fights of UFC on ESPN Plus 8, UFC Fort Lauderdale. I will do all of this with the co-host of the SMC, who can be read at Sherdog, Fansided, and Cageside Press, and listened to on the Loudmouth MMA Network. It's Keith Shillan. Keith, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So, let's get into it, Keith. The UFC came back to Sunrise, Florida for a second time. They haven't been in this town since 2012 when Demetrius Johnson and Ian McCall were the headliners. This card, for a minute, was more about who wasn't here than who was, as Paulo Costa and Yoel Romero were connected to this card in several fight incarnations. At the end of all that, we got a pretty good card despite losing those high-level 185-pound studs. Keith, quickly, going into this card, was it just about Jacare maybe getting a title shot for you? Was there more to this card? I mean, listen, you're a card-carrying hardcore. I get that. But, I mean, was that the story of this card, basically?
No, I mean, yeah. If you had to pick one story, stick of a threat, Jack Hermanson, how, do we have a new contender in the division? So that was actually the story. But, I think there's a lot of stories. Obviously, Greg Hardy's always going to be a story when he fights. I thought the bringing in Verda Jandiroba was pretty good. Invicta champion going against former UFC champion Collar Esparza. I think that was a pretty good, even though it was buried on the undercard. Sandhagen and John Lineker was a fight that I think everybody was excited about. So it's funny, a lot of people were bashing this card, on paper before it started, and I liked it.
I did too. Let me ask you a quick question. I want to get your thoughts on this. Was the prelim card had a lot of names on it?
Sure.
Could the prelim card have qualified as a Bellator card? Did it have enough star power?
Yeah, I think the order would have to have been mixed up a little bit. Like, the top prelim fight technically was Ben Saunders versus Takashi Sato. They did that because Ben Saunders was in his hometown. Kind of give him as high up the card as they possibly can do for someone like Ben Saunders. But if you mix it up and you maybe want Arlovski or even former champion Esparza and Jandiroba, you did something like that. Yeah, I can see that being a weaker Bellator card.
Right.
Not compared to the one that's going on right now. But a weaker run.
100%. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, this kind of has there was a lot of names on the prelim card. We'll get to the prelims later. We'll run through them, but I want to talk about this main card.
Sure.
Keith, let's start with the main event. Less than a month ago, Jack Hermanson was choking out David Branch on Saturday night. He had a serious jump in competition as he took on absolute MMA legend Jacare Souza. Hermanson looked good early, both on the feet and on the ground. Took the third off, and then closed the show in excellent fashion as he was just quicker and better than Jacare everywhere. Keith, how surprised were you by this? And should we smash the gas on Hermanson's career and make his next fight be that fight right before he earns a title shot, or kind of pump the brakes a little bit?
Well, there's two questions there. Was I overly surprised? I was a little bit surprised, but there was signs of Jacare slowing down. Hermanson was not a guy that or Hermanson, I should say, is not a guy that I was huge on. I didn't expect him to win this fight. I actually picked him to lose to David Branch. But now, we're only in, end of April. But if the year ended right now, Jack Hermanson's your fighter of the year. With a, was it like 35-second submission of Dave Branch and then just an upset, dominant win over Jacare? He's got to be right now the leader of fighter of the year. What should we do next with him? I know we're going to get into the actual fight, but what should we do next? This is going to sound crazy, but I actually think you said either pump the brakes or have him put in a number one contenders fight. He might be past that already, because when you look at the division, you have obviously Whitaker and Adesanya set to face. Who's the next guy in line? Gastelum's coming off a loss. Romero's coming off a loss, and he's been injured, and he's already fought Whitaker twice. Weidman's on a losing streak. Jacare, he just defeated Jacare. Who else in the division is there other than him? So he might be the number one contender. Obviously not talking about Adesanya. I'm assuming Adesanya and Whitaker already get matched.
Right. Let's get into the fight a little bit. You and I talked after the David Branch fight that when you see a fight like this, the question is Hermanson on the come? Is he really great, or is David Branch just washed?
Yeah.
Can you make the same argument about Jacare? When you watched Jacare, did you feel like he was game, Or did you feel like maybe Hermanson kind of caught Branch at the right time, caught Jacare at the right time, and he might ride both of those guys to a title shot?
I think not to as big of an extent as Branch is, but I think there is a little bit to that. Like, obviously, this was a great win from Hermanson, and he's on the rise. But I definitely think Jacare had moments. He showed that he could still compete, but there were some things that kind of concerned me about Jacare throughout the duration of this fight. So, yeah, I think it's somewhere in between. I know I do that a lot. I do that somewhere in between. Is my, like, safe walking on the wall kind of be a politician in me. But, I think Hermanson showed that he's a threat.
Do you think that the UFC should abandon a little bit this whole I don't want to match a guy with a win with a guy with a loss? Because, I mean, there are some fights out there potentially for Hermanson, but he would have to fight guys with losses.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just doesn't make any sense for him. I mean, to me, he's the top guy right now. I mean, I don't think anybody could be above him. And what matchup would make sense? I mean, if you match him with Romero and Romero beat him, now you have Romero. If Romero won, you got to hope Adesanya wins because you're not going to do a third fight with Whitaker.
Right. It's got to be Gastelum, though. For me, I would say Gastelum.
Yeah.
Only because
that's
Gastelum was matched with Whitaker. That fight fell out. Then he was asked to Adesanya. I could see that fight, but again, coming off a loss.
Yeah, no, that would probably be the only thing is Gastelum because, like you said, he didn't get to fight Whitaker and, he fought Adesanya. It was a fight of the year candidate. So, I think everyone would like to see that again. So, yeah, that's it. So, really the two options for Hermanson right now is to match him in a number one contenders fight against Gastelum, or what I think is next in line. Put him on the sidelines and have him fight the next in line.
He certainly earned a break. So, yeah, if you want to put him there, and you know what, maybe you do the thing that they did with Kevin Lee or a couple other guys where you fly him out to the Adesanya-Whitaker fight, and he's just he gets paid to make weight, and he's there. And then that's one reward for taking a short notice fight, and the other one is, putting him, like you said, next in line.
Yeah.
All right, Keith. Our co-main event of the evening was Greg Hardy and Dmitry Smolyakov. I don't want to turn every Greg Hardy fight into a political statement, but here's where I struggle. What he did was horrible. Okay.
Of course.
He doesn't seem to be showing a ton of contrition. Seems to really be clunky with his wording on some stuff, saying he wanted to be the biggest predator in the UFC. He's probably not smart. And he's only fighting cans. Keith, I'll keep my question simple. Why should I give a shit about Greg Hardy?
You should. So here's my situation, and I am 100% with you. With anybody who wants to take a moral stance like Greg Hardy, we're a society of rules. Obviously, I don't do this full time. I do this part time. I'm a police officer, so nobody is anti-domestic violence. I deal with domestic violence on a daily basis. I think you're the biggest piece of shit if you lay hands on a woman. I've never heard a good reason to ever lay a hand on one, especially not someone like Greg Hardy, who's an elite athlete. You get the ones, women attack me, this and that. This guy, you're talking about a professional football player. I don't think there's a woman on earth that could do harm to a professional elite athlete like Greg Hardy, who's, 6'5", 300 pounds. I don't know exactly what his dimensions, but the guy's a monster. So I totally understand with anybody who wants to take that moral ground. But this is what I want to say to MMA fans. If you're going to take that moral ground, take it with all MMA fighters. Don't be saying, I don't want to see Greg Hardy have a fight again, but then be hoping Anthony Rumble Johnson comes back, who's a serial domestic violence abuser himself. Or Nate Diaz, Nick Diaz want to come back. He's been in trouble with domestics and Penn and all this. Like, if you want to make a moral ground, make the moral ground with everybody.
No, I agree. I guess my real struggle with Greg Hardy is that they're not matching him up with anybody that even makes him relevant almost as a fighter. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if his name was not Greg Hardy, if his name was Greg Shillan, then what would we? First of all, he wouldn't be co-main events, which is fine. No, he's getting him because of his name. But I just don't even know how to assess him as a fighter because they're so grooving it. It's just like, all right, I already have a problem with the guy, and then also he's not fighting relevant fights. So what do I do with him?
Well, I think they matched him with the way you would match a guy who has, 4 fights now, 5 fights now?
It's just he's high profile.
Which is the case, which is one is that kind of hurts him because if I don't think the outcry would be as much if he was open up the prelims in this match. I didn't say how his name I think that the Russian guy has been in the UFC. I mean, he fought guys like Cerrone, like low-level guys. That's a guy that, Hardy could be matched up with next, something like that. So that said, the one thing that really I'm surprised by, and I think I'm probably the only person on the planet that's going to say this, I see a lot of people saying he sucks. I think he's wild. But so is Roosevelt Roberts. And I don't hear people saying he sucks.
Right.
I mean, he's an elite athlete with tons of power. He's got, 5 wins? 4 wins by knockout. First round, his only loss been a disqualification. And as much as people want to talk about the Alan Crowder fight and say, he was about to lose, that was a really close competitive fight at that time. People he wasn't getting blown. Yeah, did he look sloppy? Yeah, but he wasn't getting blown out the water. There's a lot of potential for Greg Hardy, just on ability. Now, do I think he'll win a UFC title? No, but I could see a top 20 heavyweight. I mean, just on potential.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it comes down to that thing where when you hate somebody, you hate everything about them. Like if you have a coworker you hate, you'll be looking at him and you'll be like look at that freaking dude over there breathing and shit. Who do you think he is? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like if you hate something about someone, all of a sudden, like the first time you had a coworker and you didn't, and you were cool with each other, nothing bothered him about you. But then when you started not liking them, then suddenly everything they do bothers you.
Right.
I think that's kind of the situation with Hardy now. No matter what he does, he's going to get hated.
I think moving forward, in terms of this show, maybe we should just process Hardy. Go ahead.
Here's another thing. You know why he hasn't been dressed about this? Because there's not a lot of people in the media that will ask Greg Hardy about his domestic violence issues. They've asked Dana White when Greg Hardy wasn't there, when they signed him. But face-to-face, there's not a lot of guys in the media that will ask him. So, and it seems like in the NFL, it's the complete opposite. He can't avoid those questions.
Right.
And we in the media, especially because in the NFL, you ask a tough question, you're not going to get banned. You're not going to lose your media credentials. The UFC tells you not to ask a question, and you do, you're going to lose your media credentials. That's one thing. And plus, this is one thing, and this is a thing I know you've talked about, and there's too many people in the media trying to be friends with fighters. I mean, how many times have you seen media members taking pictures with fighters? Yeah. That's like the number one no-no in journalism.
Right.
If you are a media member and you call a fighter your friend, you are not a journalist. You are not a media member. You are not. That's rule number one.
Yeah, and I think there's something else to be said for there's a weird thing in the MMA media about sort of ruining the party. Who they want to just have fun, and it's almost like, and I get it, and this is why I get it, because you and I have been UFC fans for so long. I mean, I was in the UFC camp. I've been a UFC fan for so long. I used to hate Pride because I liked UFC so much, because they were competing entities. So I think a little bit that UFC's been on the rise for so long that we don't look at them like the man yet. You know what I mean? They are now big business. They are now corporate. So you can't look at them like the little engine that could anymore. And I think sometimes media has been supporting them for so long that people that don't support them are like, hey, man, why you got to bring up old shit? Why I got to bring up old shit? Because every time this guy fights, everyone's split. That's why we're bringing it up. Not because it's relevant. It's not because he did it yesterday. It's because every time he fights, people are split, and maybe he could do something to remedy that. Yeah, that's why the question gets asked.
Yeah, but you got to understand, this is the guy that got kicked out of the NFL.
Right.
That's what he's most known. I mean, besides being all pro, this guy was so violent and such a bad person, he got kicked out of the NFL. There's 32 NFL teams that don't want to take a all pro pass rusher, which is the number one thing you want. I mean, you can get a pass rusher. You can go one pass rusher can be, look what what's the guy, the Chicago Bears guy that he came in from Oakland, Cleo Mack. Look what he did with the Chicago Bears by having an elite pass rusher. And I don't want to go too far off, but you get, there's 32 teams that this guy's not worth that kind of hassle.
Well, we'll move on to because Perry and Oliveira had a great fight. But the last thing I'll just say on this is Dennis Miller had an old joke, and he said Izzy Stradlin got kicked out of Guns N' Roses for doing drugs, and he's like, how much drugs do you have to do to get kicked out of Guns N' Roses for doing drugs? It's almost like how much of a piece of shit you got to be to get kicked out of the NFL for domestic violence, a league that historically gives second chances. Yeah, all right, let's move on to Perry and Oliveira. You never know what you're going to get when Mike Perry is in the octagon, and when you add the Brazilian cowboy Alex Oliveira to the equation, the potential for craziness increases. On Saturday night in Fort Lauderdale, these boys put on a banger. Oliveira looked really sharp early, but Perry stayed tight and threw big punches and ultimately wore Cowboy down en route to a unanimous decision victory. Keith, in the post-fight, and you can talk about the fight as well, but in the post-fight, Perry was calling Darren Till's name, calling Kobe Covington's name. He won't get Covington, but I don't hate the Till matchup. What are your thoughts on the fight, and what's next for Platinum Mike?
Well, you kind of got to my one of my big finishes. I was going to talk about my not for nothings with Mike Perry. I'm still going to bring it up later, but Mike. I'm sorry. What was the question? What's next for Mike?
Well, what did you think about the fight?
Oh, the fight was a great fight. I mean, so let's back up to my rant about being a journalist and not being friends. Generally speaking, you probably shouldn't make enemies, and me and Mike Perry do not like each other. I just throw that right out there. I do not like him. I think he's a white piece of trash. I know someone will listen and be like, "Oh, you never say it to his face, you'd kill you." Yes, Mike Perry would beat me up. Okay, we all know that. He's a professional MMA fighter. He fights in the UFC. Like, he's a borderline top 25 welterweight. Yes, Mike Perry would kill me in a fight, but he's still a white piece of trash. Anyways, sorry.
Let me just interject 1 second for just 1 second.
Sure.
To address that. Why do people think that you wouldn't say something? Not you, but anybody. I would say something to somebody's face who could beat my ass. If I wanted to say it. I mean, they think that takes it off the table. First of all, why is it okay for him to respond in that way?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? This isn't, we aren't on a...
If he beat me up, that would just show him how unprofessional it is.
Exactly.
That's
my point, though. Everybody seems to think that just because these guys can fight that you won't... I've said plenty of things to guys who could probably whip my ass, and that's
I mean, it's not probably. He'd kill me. But
right.
Robert Whitaker, if I said the same thing to him, he wouldn't beat me up. He's a professional. Demetrius Johnson wouldn't beat me up. George St. Pierre wouldn't beat. They're professionals.
Right.
Regardless, I don't want to go on tangent. I've wasted too much time in my life talking about how bad of a person Mike Perry is.
Let's talk about the fight then. How did he look in the cage?
And Alex Anderson is just as bad. That said, both those guys, they're entertaining fighters. As much as I don't like Mike Perry, he's always an entertaining fight. I mean, even fights he loses. I mean, other than maybe the Alan Jouban fight, every one of his fights have been fantastic. Either he wins by some crazy knockout, or it's a back and forth war. And this was one of those. I thought Alex Oliveira fought really dumb. I think he thought Perry was going to gas out because he has. And credit to Perry for he made he's the first time he really fought smart, in my opinion, where he he didn't gas out. He conserved his energy. He picked his shots at the right time. And I thought Oliveira should have clinched more. I think that's where guys were out. They were out in the clinch. I thought that's an advantage that Oliveira has. I think Perry has shown a weakness in that field, in that area, in the Ponce fight, again, Max Griffin, different fights. I thought Oliveira fought Perry's fight. And if a guy fights your fight, you got to win that, and that's what Perry did. He dug deep in the third round. I think Oliveira dislocated his toe. That might have affected him. But, I mean, Perry dug deep, and it's a good win. It's the best win of his career, in my opinion, even though it's not the knockout, flashy knockout. But, for opponent-wise, it's the best win of his career.
Let's talk a little bit about game plan and strategy and all that sort of stuff, because you talked about Oliveira, and it's interesting. He was having some success early, but as I was watching the fight, I felt like, okay, you're looking sharp, and you're landing – you're finding some openings, but you're kind of fighting Mike Perry's fight. Is it sometimes, do some of these fighters just have to say, yeah, I'm looking good, and I'm doing some things here I want to do, but is it more important to fight your fight, even if you're having success?
Yeah, I mean, right now, spoiler, I'm watching Bellator, kind of watching, so I'm not really scoring because we're having this conversation. But John Fitch and Roy McDonald is heading into the fifth round. And it looks like an ugly, grueling John Fitch type fight. I think it's very close. Could be enemy's fight. But John Fitch is fighting his fight. That's why he's in the fifth round with one of the best welterweights. John Fitch, whether he wins or loses, a guy that he's 41 years old. He's a guy that most people believe will pass his prime. Kind of was an afterthought walking in this tournament, going against the favorite. Besides the tournament, the welterweight title is on the line. He's a guy who's never really won that major belt that's kind of like eluded his career, and he's in the fifth round, and it's anybody's fight. Like I said, I'm kind of half-ass watching it because we're doing this podcast.
Right.
He's in it because he's fighting his fight, and I thought Oliveira is a grinder. That's what he does. That's how he beat Tim Means. That's how he wins fights. That's how he beat Will Brooks and getting in these kind of battles. And he didn't get that. He got into a firefight with Perry, and that's kind of the way Perry wins. So yeah, good win. I don't want to be a hater. Everyone says I hate Mike Perry, and I do, but I don't want to take anything away. This is a really good win. This is the best win of his career.
All right, let's move on. Iwan Kutalaba is a sports car athletically. Got an amazing build, throws all kinds of techniques.
Yeah.
He's got it all in terms of skills, Keith. But Keith, even the most high-performance sports cars sputter when the gas tank is empty. And on this night, Kutalaba looked good early but faded in the end of the first round. The vet Glover Teixeira hung around and found the finish in the second.
Yeah.
Let me just say before I ask you this question that I know that I told you I was going to have my John Jones sign up.
Okay.
Every time I asked you if anybody has a shot or a championship run in them to just pull the sign up. Okay, yeah. I'm going to ask anyway. Does Glover have a run at least to a shot left in him, or at this point should he just be thinking about the best way to end his career?
Yeah, I think this tonight could have actually been a good way. That said, I love the analogy of Kutalaba being a sports car. If he's a sports car, he's a sports car who blew his engine on the side of the road, and that Toyota Corolla is still putting up 300,000 miles. That's what Glover Teixeira is. He's in his, I believe, 40 now, 39, I think, 39 to 40, still going on. This was what a veteran performance, and how fun is it to see a guy not nearly as athletic, doesn't hit as hard, not as young, not as decorated of a wrestler, and still find a way. I mean, he got hurt, but even though he was hurt, he kind of kept his wits about it. Even though when he was hurt, you could see he was still like focusing. He never, when he got hit with that spinning back fist. And man, what a veteran-like performance! Just stay in the battle, just slowly kind of just keep hitting the gas. And Kutalaba burnt himself out. And to me, this is one of the wins at the end of is Glover Teixeira's career. Not thinking about like when he knocks out Ryan Bader, but like one of these fights, just a great veteran, and it's twice in a row now. He's got hurt early in fights and found a way to come back. I love it. It's just so good.
And it's interesting. I can't remember the other fight, but I remember we compared the Poirier fight on that card to another fight, and I'll compare two fights on this one because of the way they could have went.
I know exactly.
I thought in that third round that Jacare was that Hermanson was like Kutalaba early. Yeah. And that Jacare in that third round was going to turn it around. Now, to his credit, and this one is what might make him a championship caliber fighter. This is Hermanson. He found a way, man. He came back in that fourth and fifth. He used some good.
He dug deep. Dug deep when Kutalaba couldn't. It's funny how we had the narrative wrong about the Jacare Hermanson fight. I think most people's narrative was that Jacare would come out guns blazing, and Hermanson would have to weather the early storm of Jacare, and if he could, he'd slow down. But it was almost Jacare did it. He weathered the early storm of Hermanson, and then in third, he had his moment, and it actually seemed like going into the fourth and fifth, okay, now here's when Jacare might take over, and it wasn't. It was the opposite. Hermanson was able to get, and that's what I think what Jacare might be missing, because even in the third round when he had his good moment, he wasn't able to accelerate to the next gear up. And I think that's just showing an aging fighter that has, wars on his way. But back to Teixeira, what a veteran move.
And I'm with you. And I should have talked about this in the Jacare fight. I'll just hit the fans with this real quick because I forgot about it. But the thing I thought that was most impressive about the Hermanson performance is at the very beginning of the fifth round, Dominic Cruz said the exact round that Jacare had to have, and then Hermanson had it. Like as soon as he said, I think Jacare should come out and get a takedown. Next thing you know, Hermanson took it right to him, which I was impressed by. So again, I jumping back to Teixeira, I don't think, and I mentioned this early on in the intro about Glover, and I think more fighters should do this. You need to be real with what the end of your career is going to look like. The end's coming soon for Glover, and he said it in the cage, and I really hope he takes it to heart. He said when Anik asked him what he said to Dana White, he said, "I'm going to be here for a while." He said, "I want to end my career in the UFC." And I think that if he keeps trying to climb that ladder, that it's not going to end the way he wants. I really think that he should find the right fight, make sure it's in Brazil or somewhere he wants it to be, to where he can put his gloves on the canvas where he wants to put them. Yeah. And that's what he earned tonight. Yeah, I
100. A lot of guys, they go out with get knocked out, something like the Gustafsson fight. I would love to see him get a fight either in Brazil, in his home country, Brazil, or so he has his own gym in Connecticut, his own school. They don't come to Connecticut often, but in New York City or Boston, and both close by, or put him on like International Fight Week, a big card where it is, the highest pay-per-view with John Jones or DC Lesnar, one of those guys. Put him on a big card, give him a winnable fight, someone he can win, and have him retire on that. I think that'd be really good.
I wish more guys would do that. I wish more guys would take that victory lap and just say, like, Dana, put me on International Fight Week. I want to attend all the events and let everybody tell him how great he was. And if he wins the fight, he wins the fight. But just give him that victory lap, like Kobe or Dwayne Wade or all these guys take their final little, lap.
So speaking of old aging fighters who kind of never got to win a title, the Fitch McDonald fight ended. And like I said, I haven't, been able to really dig deep into it. So I'm not sending the scorecard to any decision or anything like that. But Fitch might have this win. He's celebrating like he won, and I'm waiting for John McCarthy to show his card. How they do that. But John Fitch might be the new Bellator welterweight champion. That'd
be crazy. And you mentioned earlier not having the belt. I guess it would depend on how you view World Series of Fighting. But he picked that belt up before they went out of business. So he's kind of got. And again, that's not.
They were really like a double A. I mean, he didn't beat Rory McDonald to get that.
No, 100%. This is way more of an accomplishment, but I think that he kind of put together a nice little career when we thought, okay, he was just going to be this bridesmaid forever.
Yeah.
So
I'm really, like I said, I actually picked Rory McDonald to win. I messaged somebody and said, I think Fitch is a tougher matchup than these people think because he has that weird grinding style. But
Rory likes space too.
You're still a person. It would be nice to see a guy like that in his career. It's like when people were happy when Poirier won a title because he's been so close. It was when people were happy when Bisping won a title. Obviously, Fitch doesn't have as big personality as those two guys, but
Fitch is weird, man. Fitch gets some shade for weird reasons.
So Big John gave the fight to McDonald, 48-47. He gave him the first, second, and fourth. And gave Fitch the third and the fifth.
Yeah, Fitch gets weird shade, man. I think there were two main reasons he got a lot of shade in his prime in the UFC was one, people didn't like his style, and two, he'd never give us that Koscheck fight. Like they were right there, the two of them, and it was like Dana wanted it, we wanted it.
Yeah. The least entertaining thing about this is that people who are listening to the show already know who won.
So we're anticipating.
Not the Bellator recap, and 3, neither one of us are watching the fight to really say if he should have won or not.
So let's move on to something that we watched.
Okay.
John Lineker is one of those fighters who is kind of like Jorge Masvidal, a bad motherfucker and a tough matchup for anyone. Lineker has never been easy to sign next to on a bout agreement. Small in stature, what Lineker does is simple. He sits down on his punches and swings for the bleachers. Hooks to the body and head. He waits you out, waits for an opening, and closes the show. Corey Sandhagen, who looks like the love child of Dominic Cruz and Paul Felder, kind of fought like both of his fathers tonight. He did a pretty good job of going into the pocket to score some strikes and getting out just in time to avoid Lineker's power. It was a split decision, so at least one man thought Lineker did enough. Keith, did you think he did enough?
Yes, I did. I scored at 29-28 for Lineker. That said, I'm 100% okay with Sandhagen. It kind of comes down to what you think. Sandhagen's volume, he had more pressure, he kind of had octagon control, stuff like that. Do you think that was more, or the power and damage of Lineker? I thought the first round was a toss-up. I thought the third round was a toss-up. I thought Sandhagen probably won the second round. So that says you'd have to give both toss-up rounds to Lineker, and I did. But I'm okay with anybody who wouldn't have gone and went with Sandhagen. Really good performance, regardless whether you think he won or lost. Really good performance by Corey Sandhagen. I mean, he had great angles in the fight. I was impressed by how much like his toolbox, where he was jab, cross, hook, uppercut, leg kick, change an angle, takedown attempt, like knees, high kick. Like he was through everything. He wasn't, combinations like jab, and his jab was on point all night. So I was really impressed. He obviously is a top 10 guy now. Oh no. Oh, you won't believe what happened.
Tell me.
You won't believe it.
Draw.
Oh my God, majority draw. Oh, and because of that, McDonald advances in the welterweight tournament because he's the champion. That's terrible.
Tie goes to the runner.
Oh, poor John.
That sucks.
No. You know what happened? They had an alternate for this tournament. They both should be out. The alternate should be in.
Wow, you don't want them to sell any fucking tickets. Look at you.
No, I mean,
you're booting both. You're like, let's get rid of both these high-profile guys and bring an alternate in.
You know, McDonald, you should be out. And like I said, I didn't watch it close enough. I'm assuming what happened was they went 3 rounds to 2 for Fitch, but gave McDonald a 10-8 round. That's what I'm assuming happened. Like I said, I'm going to rewatch it tomorrow.
Jesus Christ, are you a purist? You're trying to kick both these fucking guys out.
You
are a purist of the highest degree. You got both these guys, both these high-profile guys are getting kicked out. I'd love to know who the alternate is.
You know what, dude? Run it back. Run it back, then. Run it back.
There you go. Fuck it.
I think the alternate's either Lorenz Larkin or even worse is the what's his first name? I can't think of his first name. Yaroslav Amosov, the Russian.
Oh, Jesus. Russian. You're trying to bury this promotion. You're trying to bury this promotion. You got a shovel out. You're digging a fucking grave right now.
But back to Lineker and Sandhagen. The height difference was so big. It felt like big brother and little brother. And when Sandhagen was like kind of crouching down and just jabbing over and over again.
Dude, a 5'11" bantamweight. When do you see that?
Yeah. And well, he also have a 5'3" bantamweight. So kind of like
so you're right. Yeah.
2 extremes going. I thought Lineker made a couple problems. I don't think he pressed the action enough. When he was going forward, he did a lot of good work. He just was trying to counter too much. He got forward a lot in the 3rd round. That's why I thought he won the 3rd round, did his best damage. But either way, really, really, I thought hopefully this fight gets fight tonight, even though Perry and Oliveira was a good fight, and so was the main event. The main event will probably get the fight of the night. But I think from a competitive standpoint and excitement, it was a split decision. I hope this fight got fight of the night. But like people will already know by tomorrow.
Yeah, this is what's funny? This is a weird analogy I'm about to hit you with, but this is what I thought about this fight. Because one of the things that I look for, you look for different things when you look at fights. Here's one thing I look for. And you're going to hear me say this 1,000 times. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Whose fight are they fighting?
Yeah.
This was like a shootout, right? And what I mean by a shootout in terms of like the NFL is like, and this is not to take away from these guys' defense on the night, but it seemed like neither guy was really doing much on the defensive end, and they were taking turns fighting their fights. So Sandhagen would do his thing, and then Lineker would do his thing. Both guys were fighting their own fight, and it probably just came down to who did more. And you'd have to say Sandhagen did more, right? He did more of what he does. That's where I think the path towards him getting the decision is that he just did more of what he does than Lineker does of what he does, and that was at the end, that's what it was. So Sandhagen was talking about the belt in the post-fight interview. He said his goal was 2020. He's like a Macy Barber over here setting his life goals. He said 2020, but he thinks sooner than that. Dude, it's April of 2019. This kid can't really think he's got a line to that belt, does he?
No, especially with that division being that division is such a weird flux with TJ and Cejudo and
Reyes and
Sterling, obviously
Sunsao. There's a lot going on in that division.
Yeah. He didn't call anybody out. I kind of wished you kind of would take a chance and call somebody out. I wasn't sure how I felt about Sandhagen before the fight. I kind of was like, I don't know if he's really a contender. I do think he's a contender now. I mean, anybody who beats John Lineker is, in my opinion, is a contender. Who would you like to see him fight next?
That's a tough one. I don't know.
Makes sense, I got to pull up the break. I can't. It's.
I wouldn't hate Sterling. I think Sterling's booked. I wouldn't hate that fight. I just want him to get in there with somebody that's going to keep his profile up. I don't think the Sunsao keeps his profile up.
No, even though he's lost. Yeah, he's Pedro Munoz is another guy we forgot who's fighting Sunsao.
That's what I'm saying. Like you have to make a decision of whether or not you want this kid. You want to turn not into a star.
A step back. Is Cody Garbrandt a step back? I mean, he's a star, but he's lost 3 in a row.
Yeah. When Cruz is healthy, but who the hell knows when that's ever going to happen?
Ooh, how about the winner of Jimmy Rivera versus Petra Yan? Yan is a guy.
If it's Rivera, yeah.
Oh, I think Yan is even more.
I don't know, man. You know me. We're different in one respect. I'm a little bit more intrigued by the star building than you are. You're a little bit more of a purist, I think, in terms of like you want the right guys to fight, and I'm a little bit more like if we're gonna turn this kid into something, I want to give him a little bit of a profile. So I prefer him fighting a name.
What
But
about
I
two
think
right?
a Sunset or Munoz fight would be better for him.
So would you say if you want him to fight a name, wouldn't Garbrandt fit that?
100%. I'd love to watch him fight Cody Garbrandt.
Oh, that'd be the fight. All right, so make it happen. Let's.
And I think it's interesting too because they're talking about Sandhagen as being like the poor man's Dominic Cruz.
Yeah,
so I think that's another layer to it, I think.
I wouldn't mind a prospect battle with him and like Ricky Simone, two rising prospects. I wouldn't mind.
Cool.
I know I usually don't like the prospects battle, but in this case, being that the division, the line is, to be honest, the line is so long. By the time they get, the matchup they have, then the winner of Asuncao and who am I forgetting? Pedro Munoz, and then they get to the, maybe Dominic Cruz comes back or Jamir Petriani. By the time they get to a guy like Cody Sagan, TJ Dillashaw might be back.
Right.
Seriously, it's 2 years, but a guy gets injured, the belt gets held up a little bit.
Well, Moraes is booked. Sterling and Munoz are booked. Jan's fighting Rivera, like you said. I don't know. I mean, I think a Sun Sao could make sense, except for that. A Sun Sao makes sense and Garbrandt makes sense. The problem is a Sun Sao's been up at the tops for so long, and he's coming off a loss.
Yeah.
But it was to Moraes. I don't know, man. Both these guys, we talked about earlier, coming off a loss. Do you give a kid? I think if someone's making a jump, you should let them get a guy coming off a loss. A jump in
rankings, yeah.
Yeah, like if they're taking on a guy that's much more quote unquote talented or skill wise is a jump, they should be allowed to make that jump.
Another prospect they throw in there, Nathaniel Wood. If you want to go a rising hot prospect.
I just think now's the time when this kid, after you beat Lineker, I can't imagine this kid not taking that fight with a name.
Yeah, no,
or at least with a number, right? He's either going to fight a name or a number, right, Keith? He's either going to fight Garbrandt or a number guy with a number 2 name.
Or Sun Sao, yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, I think you're right.
All right, let's move on to the first fight of the main card, which is Roosevelt Roberts. Roosevelt Roberts, Keith, may be the poster child for the current state of MMA prospects. 3 finishes in the regionals, a call up to Bellator, then Dana White comes calling for the Tuesday Night Contender Series. Now he's a full-fledged member of the UFC roster. This is his second fight. He's undefeated with all finishes prior to tonight, and he's got like 7 fights. I mean, this is – I mean, listen, we can talk about him. We can talk about the larger thing of like Roosevelt Roberts kind of reminds me of AAU basketball, where it was like you just start grabbing everybody up, and then the AAU teams turn into the college teams, and the next thing you know, it's like everything's streamlined. It's like, are these guys with Dana White Contender Series now? Are these guys ever going to get to like 10, 11-0 anymore?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I mean,
because nobody wants to lose them.
And I don't know. I don't know if you've seen. I am not impressed with the series of the announced fights, other than a handful of guys. But they're coming, and I'm a big Contender Series guy. I am not impressed with the lineup, the guys who have been announced in the 3rd season yet. And Roosevelt Roberts. So I think for Fanside, I might be doing it for a different website this year, where I do a preview of all the Contender Series. I watch all the fights, I match them up, I say who I think is going to win, and it's a lot difficult than a regular prediction piece that you do for UFC, because it's hard. You got to dig up tape that's not there. You got to find tape. You got to look. I'm watching a camera phone sometimes to kind of get a grasp on who these fight, watching interviews, all kind of stuff. I've seen a lot of Roosevelt Roberts, and it's usually when it comes to a hot prospect, Dana White's all in. Dana White's in the camp. This guy's the next future thing. He said it in that interview with Megan Levy when he was talking about. And they were talking about Conor McGregor, and they said, well, we're always building stars. And he mentioned, and it was one of the people he mentioned was Roosevelt. So he's in that camp. So usually 3 camps. It's that camp, the, well, let me wait and see camp. That's that kind of wimpy camp. And then there's one like, I don't get it, I don't see it. And I'm in the I don't get it, I don't see it camp. He's a good athlete. I think he showed in this fight with his weird scrambles. He's very fast. He's very explosive. But he is sloppy. Like, he can't control a position. He did it in his first fight with Horcher. He did it on the Contender Series. He did it this matchup. And Thomas Gifford is as low of a UFC fighter as it comes. Thomas Gifford's not a UFC fighter. I mean, Thomas Gifford is like Devin Powell's brother. It's like the same fighter, tall, skinny, unathletic, plays the BJ. He kept playing the BJJ game, and I know we've talked about this, so I want to go on a rant on that. But if you do that, if you're a guy who goes to your BJJ class wearing the gi and you play on bottom and you close guard and you do these collar tally things and you start tapping your teammates, that's cool, but that shit don't work anymore. I mean, how often do you see a guy playing the guard game on bottom and get submissions? It's so rare. And this is what this guy was doing. He should have been using those chances to scramble. You got Jandarova, which we'll get to. She was using those chances to get back on the feet to try to get top position to use your top. And if you want to be a just guy, get top position, not the bottom game. And this was Gifford was doing, jumping to guard in bad situations, stuff like that. I don't know. A lot of people are big on Roosevelt Roberts. I am not one of them. To me, he had a close fight with one of the worst guys in the UFC. I don't see it.
All right, so a couple of things moving forward. Just a thought of mine in terms of the contender series. I think you're right. I mean, I think they're going to have to reach so deep into the regionals to put guys on this show. I think their next play, and this has kind of been done in other forms before, I think they're going to have to make it a gym thing. It's going to be like they're going to make the connection of like the Labs had X number of fighters and Jackson Winks had X number of fighters. I think they're going to have to make a gym connection because they're going to have such obscure fighters that, like you said, if you got to search for tape like this, so will they. And I just think that they're going to have these matchups where it's like such unknowns that I think at some point the theory or the template for the Tuesday Night Contender Series might wear off. Yeah, and they're going to have to find a gimmick, man.
What I just don't get is selection process because there's a lot of good talent out there, and they're not picking them. Raytheon Stotts is a guy who's one of the top prospects in MMA. He's not on the show. Jack Shaw from Cage Warriors, he's not on the show. I think sometimes some guys get a following. And Sean Brady, I think he might have a USADA situation, but Sean Brady, these guys get a following and they're good. That they kind of feel like, hey, we should be going by the UFC. I shouldn't have to fight in a show like this. I think that might be an issue. But I don't know. I don't know if they're looking for excitement. I don't know what they're looking for. But a guy like Jeremiah Wells and Vinicius de Jesus and stuff like that. Like these guys are not getting picked. These guys are good. They're top fighters in top champions and top regional promotions. To me, there's like a handful of top regional promotions that you need to be looking for: LFA, Titan FC, Island Fights, CS. Cage Warriors, Jungle Fight, like these ones are the ones you should be TKO, but they're grabbing guys from God knows where. Some records 8-5 and stuff, and I don't get it.
So in the post fight, I think I know where your answer is going to be on this one, but Roosevelt Roberts called out Matt Fravallo. Fravallo beat Jalen Turner, who is a friend of Roosevelt Roberts. I think he was saying brother in terms of like just a close friend. I think Cruz thought that meant legit brother, but that's neither here nor there. So, what do you think about that Fravallo fight?
Yeah, it makes sense. Sure. Like that's not reaching too far above. That's probably about the right fight. I will get to the not for nothing about the Fravallo fight.
All right, let's get through this preliminary card. Let's hit it in a rush. Okay. Just give me a couple of words on each fight. Takashi Sato defeated Ben Saunders by TKO via strikes, round 2, 118. What about this fight? You're a huge Ben Saunders fan on Twitter, I heard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Ben Saunders. I mean, the guy's been around for the UFC a long time. Really good dude. You see, he does a lot of things. You see him in those like chat rooms and different things. That said, he needs to retire. The time has passed him. I mean, he's been knocked out a lot, and it's hard to grasp what to get from Sato when he fights a guy like Ben Saunders that's clearly done. That's all I got.
Okay, so Augusto Sakai defeated Andrei Arlovski by the split decision, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. And just full disclosure, when you review this fight and give me your thoughts on it, I was a huge card-carrying Andrei Arlovski fan in my early to mid-20s. So please be gentle.
To me, I actually thought Arlovski won. I scored 2-1 for him. I gave him the first and second. I gave Sakai the third. That said, I don't think there's a strong argument that he definitely wasn't a robbery. There wasn't enough output, and that's what kind of happened. But that's what you have with Arlovski. He's been knocked out so many times and stuff he's had in his career that he's kind of really changed his game to kind of protect his chin a lot, and that's why he's been this close. I kind of feel for the guy because, I mean, you talk about recently he lost to Walt Harris by split decision. He lost to Sakai by split decision, and then he lost to Tuivasa, a fight that I actually thought he won. So out of 2 of the last 3 decisions, I thought he should have won. I mean, after Rahimov will fight in between that he lost, but I'm saying that so 3 out of 4. I think he won 2 of those, and Walt Harris was close enough. There was a split. And Augusto Sakai, I mean, to me, it's just he's such a blah heavyweight. And what I mean by that, if he sucked really bad, we'd at least get to see him get knocked out. But he doesn't suck, but he's not good. He's not great at anything. He kind of just plods. He's low output. He doesn't really have power. And this is what you're going to get with him. You're going to get a lot of these type fights. So,
is that more a commentary on Augusto Sakai or Andrei Arlovski? In that,
to me,
a guy like this that's given Andrei Arlovski a close fight.
Yeah.
What does that tell us? I mean, we've been calling for a couple of years now for Andrei Arlovski.
Yeah. If you arguably lost to Andrei Arlovski in 2019, like, I think we kind of know what we got with you.
Yeah.
And like I said, I thought Arlovski won. It by no means was robbery. I'm okay with Sakai getting the decision, but they should have let him stay in Bellator.
True. All right. Carlos Esparza defeated Verna Jandiroba by unanimous decision, 30-27, 29-28, 29-28. What'd you see in this one?
Yeah, to me, I thought it was a really great technical fight. I'm big on Verna Jandiroba. When she was signed, I've been calling for her to be in the UFC for a while. I think she's a really good talent. I think even at a loss, she showed, being how competitive this fight was, and she had moments that she can hang with the top. She is a top 10 fighter in the division instantly. That said, I thought this was a terrible stylist match. There's a couple fighters in the division that I thought, hey, if Jandiroba, I actually believe Jandiroba could beat Rose Namajunas. I'm not saying that I would pick her, but I'm saying I believe she has the ability to win. But I thought when they signed her, or when I thought about her coming in, there was a couple fighters. I'm like, yeah, she's got to have to avoid these people to get a shot, to get a chance. And kind of what I thought with Covington with Usman. I thought Covington could beat Woodley, but he needed to get there before Usman did. And Carlos Esparza was one of them. It was like who am I thinking of? Tatiana Suarez, Carlos Esparza, and everyone else is she could beat. I think she had a good moments, but this goes down to me. I will take a strong wrestler over a BJJ game any day, and that's what happened. I think it was shown again. Generally speaking, not always the case, but generally speaking, I'll take the better wrestler over a BJJ person.
Let's talk about the ups and the downs with Carlos Esparza. Before she got in the UFC, she was like one of those fighters that when they would make a list on the best fighter not in the UFC, she was always on them. She goes to tough, goes through everybody, right? Beats Angela Hill, beats Tisha Torres, beats Jessica Penne. So you're like, all right, we got something here.
Yeah.
And in the finale, she beats Rose Namajunas, who now has gone to another level. And then she fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I mean, she was completely outclassed. Yeah. It looked like almost an unfair fight.
Sure.
And it's like, so she comes back strong, beats Juliana Lima, loses to Randa
she had
Marcos.
a long layoff, too. I don't know if you remember.
Right.
Real long layoff, yeah.
What do you think we have in her? Is Joanna Jędrzejczyk, did she expose her? Did the Jędrzejczyk fight change her?
I look at her I look at Esparza losing to Joanna, and obviously that was such a long time ago. The same way I look at Jessica Andrade. While they are completely different fighters, so I'm not saying the stylist, but I mean from the sense that just a bad stylistic matchup for her. I thought Joanna's a young bad stylist, just like I think she's a bad stylistic matchup for Jandiroba. It's kind of that rock paper scissors thing where you get matched with the wrong style. If you look over, she's fought a who's like. All right, so she lost to Randa Marcos. That was a fight that a lot of people thought she won. Miranda Moraes, the fight looked really good. She beat Cynthia Calvillo. She lost to Claudia Gadelha that most people thought she should have won. And she got the brakes beat off her by Tatiana Suarez. But guess what? I think Tatiana Suarez is going to do it to everybody. So, and then she just beat, in my opinion, I think probably a top 5 fighter from potential sense in Jandiroba. I think Esparza is good. I heard someone this week, I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been Conor Rebush. He described her as like the poor man's female version of Frankie Edgar. She's like a high volume, kind of like to take angles in and out striker who mixes and takedowns well. And I think that's a really good comparison. Obviously not as decorated as Frankie Edgar. That's why it's like poor man's version.
Yeah.
But
obviously Frankie takes punishment better, probably has better hands. But yeah, that's not a bad analogy. You know what?
He wasn't always like his polished boxer. See, that's kind of something he's done in the second half of his career.
Yeah. You know, Jędrzejczyk, the fight with Jędrzejczyk kind of reminds me of when Anderson Silva fought Rich Franklin. And after that fight was done, I was like, damn, I don't even know what I know about Rich Franklin anymore. I mean, I really didn't know what I had in Anderson Silva yet when I first saw it, but I was like, damn, is this mean Rich Franklin is not who I thought he was? And then he went on to have, what at some point you and I will argue a Hall of Fame career or not. But yeah, that's what I got out of her. So, listen, I defer to you.
Hold on, just sort of, to me, the Hall of Fame argument where Rich Franklin comes out of this. Is he a UFC Hall of Famer? Yes. The problem is the UFC Hall of Fame is extremely watered down. It's not like the Baseball Hall of Fame, the best, even though it's kind of, but I mean, like, it seems like anybody who did really anything somewhat significant in the UFC is going to get in. I mean, Rich Franklin's 2 title defenses were against Nate Quarry and David Lawes. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like the whole thing about like, and we'll get off of this quickly, but I think people like tangents.
Sure.
Kind of like the Eli Manning Hall of Fame thing. If Joe Namath is in, you can make the Eli Manning argument. If Matt Serra's in, it's easy to put Franklin in.
See, that's the issue. You keep lowering the bar, and you let people in. It's like the guy who there's somebody out there right now who's saying I get the most home runs of anybody not in the Hall of Fame, or I get the most RBIs. Well, if I let you in, then there's a new guy who's going to be saying that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's true.
I mean, Mo Smith is in the UFC Hall of Fame because of one fight, because he beat Mark Coleman. And Matt Serra is in the Hall of Fame because of 2 reasons. Because he punched George St. Pierre in the back of the ear and got a knockout, and he's friends with Dale.
True.
Like,
all right. Gilbert Burns defeated Mike Davis by submission via rear naked choke in the second round at the 4:15 mark. What you think of this one?
Wow, really good win by Gilbert Burns. The guy that if the tools are all there. I mean, everything's there for him. It's just he just has had hiccups. He hits hard. I thought he put this all together when he's an elite grappler. If he can just put it all together, I mean, I think we really have a top 15-ish lightweight. That says Mike Davis is the guy. This is the guy when I talk about contention. I watched him. He's a guy that I was really, really high on. I still am high on him, but really terrible performance. I do feel like his back was against the wall a little bit, taking a fight, 1, on short notice, 2, against a borderline top 15 lightweight, moving up a weight class in your UFC debut. So when there was a lot of things going against him, I just thought he'd have a better performance in this. And I'm okay with him losing. I just thought he should have showed more. And, really, really bad performance. I might be overrating Mike Davis a little bit, or he hasn't developed as much as I think he should have by now.
Speaking of UFC Hall of Fame, your pick for the Hall of Fame, Jim Miller defeated Jason Gonzalez by submission via rear naked choke, round number 1, 212.
Well, I want to go. So just for that, I'm okay with Jim Miller getting. I mean, he's at the longevity thing, but that's all he has. Let's be honest. His best win. What's his best win? Back dancing, an early win against Charles Alden. I mean, all he is longevity.
Right.
But because of the precedents we've set with the UFC Hall of Fame, of course, he's a no-brainer. He's in the most appearances in the UFC. He's in. I mean,
you know who gets Jim Miller in the Hall of Fame? Surprisingly,
Matt Serra won the UFC title, but he's had a better career than Matt Serra. He had a better career probably than Mo Smith. I mean, here's the person that I think gets Jim Miller into the Hall of Fame. It's Donald Cerrone. Because Donald Cerrone had a much better career than him, but the way that Donald Cerrone has been sort of a middling fighter for most of his career, and yet has all these statistics that we can tout, like most wins and most this and most that, he's been fighting, 15 in the 15 to 25 range for most of his career, maybe 10 to 25 range. But he has all these, records, and then Jim Miller will at some point get most minutes in the octagon, shit like that. And it's okay. Most minutes in the octagon, so he goes to decision a lot. All right, great. Yeah, and then it's going to be slippery slope because you know who Jim Miller is going to get in? Joe Lazon.
Yep.
And Joe Lazon, we talk about Jim Miller. I mean, Jim Miller maybe was a top 10 fighter at one point, maybe low end top 10, maybe top 15. Joe Lazon was not even that, and he'll get in because of longevity and stuff like that. So
they'll show the Jens Pulver highlight. Yeah, they got a whole thing lined up. I'm ready to go.
There you
go.
Right. Yeah.
Angela Hill defeated Jody Escobar by unanimous decision, 29-28, 30-27, 30-27. What about this one?
The Angela Hill's just better fighter. I mean, we can say she's a better athlete. Jody Escobar, a.k.a. Mrs. Keith Jardine. She's tough as hell. She can take a beating, but offensively, she's just not that good. And defensively, she's even worse. Good win for Angela Hill.
The night opened up with Diego Lima defeating Court McGee by split decision, 30-27, 28-29, 29-28. What you see in this one?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this comes down to, Diego Lima showed improved takedown defense, which has always been a huge hole. And to me, it was really hard to see, is it Diego Lima improved his takedown defense, or is Court McGee at the point where he's so shot that he's not even like his takedowns are not even that hard anymore. So, yeah, it's just one of those fights. They didn't really answer any questions to me, other than Court McGee probably should. He's been talking about retiring. Probably should be the move.
All right, let's move on to trending up, trending down. I had trending up Jack Hermansson. It's difficult to say who a short notice fight benefits, but on just 2 weeks' notice, Jack Hermansson came in and played legend killer as he dominated in all rounds but the third. Trending down, I had Ben Saunders. Ben Saunders has been half of a lot of great fights, even more if you believe my theory that he and Mike Zwick are the same guy. But I think it's time to ask for the check and call it a career. Who'd you have trending up?
Yeah, I actually have a couple trending up. Of course, I'm not going to build on Hermansson. You already mentioned him. Corey Sandhagen. I mean, he pulled up, unranked guy just beat a ranked guy in a fight of the night performance. Hate to say it, but he fought smart. Mike Perry. That's his best performance of his career. And a fun one, I'm going to throw Jim Miller's kids in there. All four of his kids got their first UFC fight. They were in the front row. They saw their dad pick up a quick submission win. And their celebration as a father, that was like, I'm sure Jim Miller, that's probably – when he gets to see their celebration when he won, that's probably better than winning a UFC title. Trending down, Jacare, I mean, you were talking about fighting Romero. You said you were disappointed that you didn't get a guy like Romero to fight Hermansson and then lose in your new hometown. That sucks. And even though he got a win as a prospect, I thought he showed huge holes. Roosevelt Roberts, I think, is trending down.
All right, let's move on to Not For Nothing. I don't want to say a lot, but I got a couple. Not for nothing, but the ref in the Teixeira Cutelaba fight looked like he won a goddamn drawing to get to ref a fight. This guy missed some borderline fouls and was chatting Bruce Buffer up post-fight like it was the goddamn fan expo. I was like, this guy is the most out-of-place ref I've ever seen. Not for nothing, but when did Glover Teixeira become Junior Dos Santos? They look like each other. They're kind of goofy, dad bod Brazilians. They're kind of in there busting balls. That's my number two. Not for nothing, but don't say no excuses after you make excuses. Yeah, when Teixeira called out Corey Anderson, he said, I took the fight on 2 weeks' notice, but hey, no excuses.
Yeah, but not to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but it wasn't he took it on 2 weeks' notice. It was Corey Anderson took it on 2 weeks' notice. Like, if you're going to make an excuse, your excuse should be, hey, I had a full camp to prepare for someone else, and you got 2 weeks. Like, yeah, that's even worse.
That's true. All right, not for nothing, but a Perry Oliveira fight would make sense occurring in any number of places. A beach in Brazil, a Florida grocery store parking lot, a Vegas strip club. This fight doesn't belong only in the octagon. And not for nothing, is anybody more deserving of a reality show on E than Mike Perry and his girlfriend? And I turn it over to you. I'm sure you would DVR that.
Yeah, not for nothing. Mike Perry, if you're going to call out the number 2 guy in the world who's probably fighting for the title, like, just don't do that. I don't know how to say this. I just want to bash Mike Perry. Dude, you're on a 1-fight winning streak and you didn't even beat anybody ranked in the top 15. You got to call up the interim champion who's fighting for the title next. Come on, like, you got to call someone out. Like, pick someone realistic. Like your parole officer or something. Not for nothing. You already stole my Corey Anderson. Not for nothing. Another call out flop. Roosevelt Roberts. If you're going to call someone out, at least know their name. It's Matt Favola, like Steamroller Favola. Don't pronounce his name wrong if you're going to call him out. Not for nothing. Cutelaba, when you do your thing, when you walk across the octagon and get in the guy's face, don't do it to Glover Teixeira. And this guy's fought John Jones and Rampage and Anthony Rumble Johnson and Rashad Evans and Alexander. You're not going to scare Glover Teixeira, so don't waste that energy. And not for nothing, UFC, figure it out. Is it Fort Lauderdale? Is it Miami? Is it Sunrise? Help us out with the Twitter and switching from ESPN to ESPN Plus because the main event changed and then going back to the late starts. Come on, not for nothing. You had a good thing going with the early start times.
All right, let's go to Shocker of the Night. I just thought how good Hermansson looked. I mean, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I did not expect him to look that good against Jacare, especially on the short notice.
Yeah, I hate to do it again, but my Shocker is how smart Mike Perry fought. I think he conserves energy, and Perry and smart don't go together often. So, yeah.
All right, from the notebook or from the margins, as we say, when Anik said that Cruz is Corey Sandhagen's idol, and there were some similarities, Cruz couldn't even give it up to the kid, saying, hey, he seems very smart in his studying. Yeah. I'm like, can you at least tell the kid, I see something there? He just kind of completely took a shit on him. Anik, talking about Rashad Evans, said, former UFC lightweight heavyweight champion, now vegan. Rashad Evans. Seemed like an odd pivot.
Yeah,
From the Notebook, here's why Trevor Whitman on this telecast is genius. Because what they do is they're able to go to commercial and get that commercial money and have someone who basically summarizes the corner when they come back, which is probably better than just listening to the corners. So that's why I think the Whitman thing is perfect. Also from the Notebook.
Yeah.
Also from the Notebook, back to Mike Perry. Perry said in the pre-fight interview, I'm going to go in. They're calm and collected, and then proceeded to walk to the ring, very uncalm and not at all collected. Side note, Mike Perry's girlfriend walking to the ring with him is as on brand for anybody as Mike Perry's girlfriend walking to the cage is exactly what you would expect Mike Perry to do. Side note, my friends and I used to have this rule 100 years ago. Whichever fighter came to the ring making a bigger fool of himself was probably going to lose. So when both Mike Perry and Cowboy Oliveira walked to the ring, I didn't know what to do. The MMA gods just shrugged their shoulders. They were like, what are we going to do with these two fucking guys?
So a lot of people shit on Mike Perry's girlfriend for being this cornerman, and that one time when she was like screaming, break his leg or break his arm, or in the Ponzinibbio fight. Or maybe it was the Max Griffin fight. I can't remember. It was one that Mike Perry lost. And a lot of people said, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have your girlfriend as cornerman. Is it just me? But I feel like she corners Mike Perry because, like, Mike Perry is probably that guy who, like, doesn't let his girlfriend go, like, any further than, like, 2 feet away from him. Like, I think it kind of, like, she asked to go out with his friends and, like, no way. Like, well, you're going to go out there and talk to other guys and stuff. You're cheating on me. So that's he
seems like the kind of guy that's at the same time goes after a girl that he completely knows is bad news. Like, he's aware of what she's capable of and yet still goes for it. So I think that's more to your point. All right, let's go.
See, I think the opposite. I think he, like, gets a nice girl and he's the bad news.
Oh, yeah?
Like, there's, like, I bet you that girl's a nice girl. Like, she probably grew up in a nice family.
You know what's weird, though? It's weird to me that what's his name? Caraway and Tate used to catch shit for being in each other's corners, and they're fighters.
Yeah.
Like, it's because Perry's so crazy and everything's nuts. Okay, sure.
Yeah. How about the props? I'm gonna give props to the commentary and then give him shit. Props to Dominic Cruz during the Sakai and Arlovski fight, talking about how boring it was. You don't hear that commentators. You must have props to that. But then on the flip side, I thought the commentary was terrible in the Lineker and Sandhagen. They were making Sandhagen sound like he romped Lineker, when to me that was like as close as they come. I mean, most people on Twitter was like 50-50 who won.
Yeah, I think sometimes
guys made it seem like Sandhagen like killed them.
Right, and Rogan used to catch shit for this back in the day, where the story will start to develop itself early on, and he just rides the story. And I think that's a little bit what they were doing in this one. All right, let's move on to talk that shit. First up, Sandhagen to his corner. Do I need this one? Elliot Marshall, you always need this one. I like that. I like a corner saying you always need this one.
And he did.
Some Cruz said that maybe should have been in the margins, but I liked it. He said late in the fight when Lineker was throwing as much heat as he is, you have to keep him away with the broomsticks. I hadn't heard the broomsticks.
Yeah, broomsticks. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. We was throwing the jab over and over again. Good call.
And you know, you kind of came down on Sandhagen for his call out. I wasn't crazy about it, but I liked the quote. The quote was, I don't want to call one person out. I want to call everybody out. I'm here to raise the bar. I like the quote. Again, I don't like using it in that space. He should have used it to, Chael says, man, you start booking the next fight after the last fight. Yeah. And go over to Shara kind of saying, I'll be here for a while. I don't want, how you want his career.
To me, there's like 3 levels of call out. Like the worst call out is the no call out. The who do you want to fight? Oh, I'll fight anybody. Or I'm not here to call it. That's the worst.
Whoever the UFC puts in front of me, that's my favorite.
Well, yeah, that's the worst. Then the next level is like you call someone out, but it's someone you have no shot at getting. But at least you try. Like if somebody you just cracked the top 15. Like is last week if Islam Makhachev called out Conor McGregor, like all right, that's a waste of time. And then the best one is when you call someone out that the matchup makes sense. That's one, And
then the last one that I wanted to do, and again, listen, this has been a Perry heavy podcast, much to your chagrin, I'm sure, but this is what I loved about this
He's
the
a character.
interview.
You can't get away from him.
When they contract, I expand. When they expand, I contract. And when there's an opportunity I don't hit, it hits all by itself. Keith, never has there been something that was more expected to rhyme in the history of post-fight interviews that didn't rhyme. I was like thinking he was going to say when they contract, I expand. When I expand, they contract. I throw big hooks and put someone on his back. At least get close.
Something.
He says to throw it, it hits about. I was like,
or something like I throw big hooks and I smoke crack. Something like that.
Yeah, something that's at least a little bit on brand. But the fucking it up's kind of on brand. So God bless them. All right, so before we usually at this point we do before we let you go, there wasn't any real big announcements I saw or anything like that. So I'm going to switch it up for you here.
Okay.
Let's say it's 1970s or 1980s, and there's still newspapers. What are Monday's headlines? What are some things that you don't have to be headline quality, but when the paper hits the front porch, what are they talking about from this fight?
Yeah, the first one, new middleweight contender, I think. Obviously, new middleweight contender, Jack Hermanson, I should say. I keep saying his name wrong. Another one would obviously be some kind of Greg Hardy gets first official UFC win. So I think those are probably your top of the page and the bottom of the page headlines.
I agree. I think Perry, maybe a Perry quote. Perry's the kind of guy that makes the back page of the New York Post.
Yeah, Perry's a character. I mean, like I said, I don't like the guy, but I mean, he is a character.
Yeah. All right, let's finish strong. You're up.
By finish strong, I'm going right at Bellator. Bellator, what the hell? Like seriously, you have a fan base that wants to watch it. I'll tell you something right now. Bellator, Scott Coker, nobody watches your product who doesn't watch the UFC. So having your card on a Saturday, chances are you're going to go head-to-head against the UFC, and instantly you're going to limit your audience. Stick to Fridays. It sucks that you had a good card, you had 2 titles on the line, and most people probably focus on the UFC instead. Just stick to Fridays and let UFC do Saturdays.
My finish strong is talking about being on brand. And I think a couple of guys on this card stayed on brand. Mike Perry, obviously, but also Greg Hardy. Listen, we've talked a lot about Greg Hardy and how much problems we have with the kind of person he is. But I will say this in his defense. He is handling his career very well. I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with the person he is, but he's kind of steering into the things. And Dana White as well. Everything that we're complaining about, they're giving us a big middle finger and saying, you don't want to be a co-main event, he'll be a co-main event again. You don't want to fight a can, he'll fight another can. You don't want him to say certain things in the pre-fight interview, he'll say them and we'll run them. And I think that they are building him for – I honestly don't think the UFC really cares. I think they think everything with Greg Hardy is a bonus. I don't think he's someone they ever put in their long-term plans. So if there ends up being a public outcry against Greg Hardy, they'll just cut him and move on. Yeah. But while they have him, they're going to keep trying to make money and get people to tune in. They're going to milk this kid for everything that they can get out of him. Yeah. And once it gets flipped, once there's Mike Vick type protest, they'll be like, all right, see ya.
You know what I know you're supposed to finish that, but you know what I would go with it just to build off that? If you're going to do this gig, he's never going to be the good guy. He's always going to be the villain. Just live the villain. Now, obviously, I'm not saying promote him being a domestic violence. Don't beat up your girlfriend. But I'm saying go. I mean, Brock Lesnar does it great. Brock Lesnar's not good with fans. He's not good with media. Do the same thing. Don't come out like slapping hands of the fans when you walk into the octagon. Go full like WF route. Like when a fan touches your arm, do like the bad guy looking at him, like scare him and stuff. Do that. Like be the out of control bad guy. Because you're not going to be a fan favorite, so just go the other way.
They're in a weird spot, man, because, obviously we both know from being in the space that we're in that Dean Thomas is about the most available guy there is. If you want to get an interview with Dean Thomas, he'll do it. And I've been wanting to talk to Dean about Greg Hardy for a while, and I think that the interview that I would have with him would be the one that sort of humanizes. Like, I would ask the questions that are going to get to the core of this guy. Like, I would ask Dean straight up, why are you coaching this guy? He seems completely opposite of who you are. So I would get right to that with him. And I think that if I were the UFC and they had their druthers, obviously they're not going to silence Dean Thomas, but I would never want that interview to occur. Like, I would just be like, listen, man, he is what he is. And like you said, even if they make attempts to humanize Greg Hardy, it won't work anyway. So why do it? Mm-hmm. Why not just, keep him on brand and go for whatever's next. All right, Keith, tell everybody where you can be. Actually, before that, we do this occasionally. Last thing, when you have your grandchildren on your knee, and you talk about the great UFC Sunrise, the great UFC Fort Lauderdale, the great UFC whatever we call it. Yeah. When you talk to your grandkids about this car, what are you going to tell them?
I'm going to tell him how I had to eat some crow because Mike Perry beat Alex Oliveira.
There you go. And I think that when I talk to my grandkids about it someday, I think we'll be talking about. I'll be telling them, Corey Sandhagen, Jack Hermanson. Before they were champs, man, they had a hell of a night. This night, I think one of them will find some gold in their future. So I might be talking to them about that. All right, so that does it for the Sunday Morning Cornerman for this week. Obviously, you can listen to us on iTunes. You can listen to us on SoundCloud. You can listen to us on YouTube. There are more YouTube videos coming to the Cageside Press Podcast Network because everyone seeing what me and Keith are doing, they're excited. WMMA Today Podcast, they're doing their video. Eddie Law, who had an issue recently, our hearts and thoughts and prayers and everything go out to Eddie. Keyboard Warriors, they'll be doing a video podcast. So a lot more of these podcasts that we do at the Cageside Press Podcast Network are going to be both YouTube and SoundCloud and iTunes, the whole nine. Keith, tell folks where they can read you, what you got working on, where they can follow you, the whole nine.
Yeah, you can follow me. I write three outlets. I write for Cageside Press, I write for Sherdog, and I write for Fansided. The two big things that will come out this week. My top 10 European fighters. I've had it done, but it got rescheduled for editor's decision. So it's coming out this week. I think it's coming out Tuesday. That'll be on Fansided. And the other thing that should be coming out sometime this week is my PFL rankings, where I'm going through every weight class and ranking the fighters. The first week is going to be the new women's lightweight division. It's going to be the easiest one to do because there's only 8 fighters. So that'll be coming out this week. It's going to be ranked 1 through 8, who I think is the talent, 1 being the best, 8 being the worst. That's going to be on Sherdog probably sometime between Tuesday and Thursday.
And where can you be followed?
You can follow me at Keith Shillan. My last name Shillan MMA. So it's at Keith Shillan MMA on Twitter.
There you go. Follow Keith. Follow Cageside Pods. Follow all the Cageside Press Podcast Network. Tell your mom. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell everybody about the Sunday Morning Cornerman. Peace.